Yo, 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 what they do. I'm your host, Aaron J. Jackson, also known as Marvin Bay, and I welcome you to the 33rd episode of Behind the Beard podcast, presented by the FGO Network. And right here, we got the homie Rick Dove.
Yes, sir. What up?
What they do. For the people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Rick Dove. I'm a designer, art director, pretty much overall creative. I've been working in the field for about like 10 plus years. But like on a low key or whatever, just doing a bunch of different projects for people, doing a bunch of freelance gigs and stuff, and now I'm here.
Yeah, most definitely. So where you from originally, and what was your upbringing like?
Well, I'm from originally I'm from South Central, born and raised. My upbringing was pretty different, but at the same time pretty typical for like somebody born in South Central, in the sense that I was introduced to gangs at an early age and kind of like dealt with that life, and then kind of opt out and kind of like find my way through skateboarding and, fashion and everything. Mm-hmm. I was influenced by, my older cousin who was like really into like streetwear, and this was around like 2005, 2004 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was really into Bathing Ape and all that stuff, and kind of like put me on and like, showed me and my mom the ropes in the sense of like fashion and stuff. And, my mom always owned like a clothing store, so she kind of like, my cousin was pretty much like the person who kind of like put her on and kind of like showed her what to cop for her store and everything.
Yeah. That's dope though that your mom like had hands on into like the fashion world.
Yeah, most definitely. So I definitely give all praise to my mom in terms of like putting me on and kind of setting me up in this whole industry. In a sense.
That's kind of like my grandma. My grandma, she into like cut and sew, so I kind of like. And the more older I get, the more I appreciate about cut and sew, how important it is about sewing and everything. But how did you start getting your hands into design? Like, what was the start for that?
Well, my mom actually, she actually like started off by like doing like custom Air Forces and stuff like that. So damn, she added that as like an element.
Around 04 too, especially. I can only imagine.
So these has to have like all the different colors and everything. And she was big on that, and I used to help her out with that in some cases. And then really she started opting into like doing like some T-shirts or whatever here and there. And she of course got Photoshopped and stuff, and I just remember like playing around with it and stuff, and like trying to design my T-shirts. I'm in the 8th grade at this point, like probably even like the 6th grade almost, and like just playing around with it and stuff. And I actually found it interesting. And then once I got my own computer, I didn't have Photoshop. I just had Microsoft Word because niggas had to do their reports and everything. And in Microsoft Word, I was actually like designing stuff and seeing how far I can go with that shit. Microsoft Word got word art, so that was like one of the things that.
If not that, it was the little paint thing, the little paint app shit.
Yeah, Kid Pix, that was another one too. It was like OG shit. That was like very, there was other things that was out that was way more professional, but that was like a remedial state of like design and stuff for me, and that was like something that kind of like encouraged me to opt into the Adobe Illustrators and Photoshops and to where I'm at now. Like that was pretty much the thing that kind of like started me off. My mom definitely encouraged me to kind of like do it, and of course people don't really take you serious at first, but like
of course, yeah.
I was able to kind of like show her that I really cared about it so much, to where I used to actually even get in trouble in school and shit, like not focusing on my classwork and like really into design, like really trying to like be the best.
It's so crazy that going to school, art was just like, he just doing art, but now it's like it's very important.
Like, I live this shit. I got to do it. So that was one of the things that kind of like really motivated me. And of course, like music always like played like a big part, a central role in terms of me and my experience in terms of design as well. It's like Lupe Fiasco was one of like my biggest influences. I mean, shit, he encouraged me a lot, and like
I feel like Lupe don't get enough credit.
He doesn't. He needs to get every rose, every flower that he actually deserved, because he definitely changed my life personally. So like waking up in the morning, like it was like. Because my cousin who put me on to fashion and stuff, he died really early on. Like he died at 16, and I was like, 13, probably even 12 at the time. And, you know, I was, of course, into, like, the gang life and stuff like that, and, like, really encouraged by that type of stuff because that's all what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to sleep one night and, like, 4 o'clock in the morning, woke up and stuff, and it was on BET. I remember they had it was this one show that they had on BET where they had, like, the little robot lady or whatever. Like, it was
damn.
Like, it was, like, the little...
I think I know what you're talking about. It's been so long.
The black lady, she was, like, what they call, like, you know, Android or some shit like that. It was like a 3D animation character or whatever on BET, and they played Lupe Fiasco Kick Push.
Yeah.
And that song, the music and everything, like the freaking, you know, violins and all that. Like, cause I was big on, like, Pharrell at the time too, before Lupe Fiasco, but I think Lupe Fiasco, in terms of, like, how he connected, like, it was like a black man into skateboarding, and that, and it was like really one of the first times that I've seen that, you know, at the time. Of course, like, Pharrell was doing his thing, but I never, like, looked at Pharrell as, like, my true interest until later on in life. But, like, you know, Lupe Fiasco definitely changed my perspective on shit, and he showed me, like, a way out of, like, the shit that I was doing.
You don't really hear that as often. Like I said, Lupe Fiasco don't get enough credit that he deserves, because when Kick Bush came out, you know, skate culture was there, but for him to globalize it,
he
being a kid from the hood,
for sure.
Exactly.
He brought it to my attention. I had all the kids around the neighborhood skating. My little brothers picked up skating from that shit. Like, I was out here fucking myself up and doing all that shit from that. And even to the point now, I'm not so much a skater anymore, but, like, shit, it's still, like, a lot of the music and the, like, the lyrics that he was saying in terms of, like, the brands he was name dropping and shit. Like, that was really what also helped, because, like, this nigga was name dropping, like, Dub Taps, Visvim, and all these, like, super high-end Japanese streetwear brands and shit. And, like, that was what kind of got me knowing the level of design I wanted to be on. Because I could have just been a t-shirt designer all day. But early on, knowing about a lot of these, like, hype brands or, like, you know, these Japanese streetwear, like, low-key brands and shit, like, you know, niggas wasn't even hearing about clot and shit like that at the time. And, like, the fact that Lou put me on that shit, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, he was talking about diptyque candles and shit. Now, like, I got a spot, I got diptyque. You know what I mean? I gotta have the shit that Lou was talking about, like, all that little low key shit, you know.
You know, coming from, you know, obviously I stayed in Miami, and you know, places like Miami, we wasn't able to get the Babes, we wasn't able to get the BBCs until, like, later years. So later on, when we heard it, it was just like, yo, how the fuck do we get this shit? We want this shit. We just see it on TV. We seen Lil Wayne where
I completely missed out on, like, the Bape LA original store too. So I was like, because I of course I was here around the time. I just didn't know too much about it. So Bape and shit was going on since '93 and shit, like, you know. And I think they don't catch me lying or some shit like that, but, like, I think that they opened up their store around 2004, 3 here, I think, something like that.
But that makes sense though, because that's around the time when, like, when all those brands on Fairfax started to,
it was very early Fairfax, for sure.
So you obviously, you know, your mom has a big inspiration with you or whatever. What other people or designers that got you inspired to design?
I mean,
coming up in the game.
When you think about, you know, that whole mindset of, like, the Japanese streetwear and shit, like, Skate Things comes to mind. Like, Skate Thing, he runs Cat Vimp right now, and Toby Feltwell, and people like that. I mean, at the end of the day, I always try to, like, do a little bit more research and stuff about the brands that I'll actually be interested in and buying. So I figured out a lot of different designers that inspired me, specifically, like, I mean, at this point, there's so many more than what it was at that time. I mean, now I'm inspired by architects and shit like that. Like, I'm talking about, like, Massimo Vignelli, like, graphic designer, like, the nigga who brought Helvetica to the United States type shit from Italy. Like,
that's crazy.
Like, the nigga who really, like, did the New York transit system. Like, I'm interested in that type of shit.
Even that shit.
Like, that type of shit is what I'm on. I'm trying to win an award for this shit, like, later on down the line.
That's crazy, because I'm going to school for commercial art, and my teacher, you know, he kind of, like, explained to me how important it is to understand about lining, understand about spacing,
composition,
all that. And I'm a photographer, so composition has to be art. Anything art, you have to have composition.
Yeah, leading lines and all these perspectives and shit.
And the more I'm diving into art 10 times more, I'm understanding like, or I'm intrigued about buildings. I'm intrigued by all that. So I'm like, yo, art. If you think about it, art is everywhere. Art is very important to culture.
Shout out to Hood Mid Century too. Y'all gotta check that out. That's the homies' Instagram. It's booming right now.
So when did you start designing clothes officially?
So I mean, shit. It took me a long time to actually be able to produce a lot of shit I was designing. So I was like known as like the nigga who had like the craziest mock-ups of like graphic tees and shit, and all the homies would be like, man, when this shit gonna come out? Like a lot of niggas was like, you know, that shit look cool, but I don't know how it's really gonna look. It's on the computer right now. So I was like around like 2000, I think 2010, 11. When I first actually produced the T-shirt, you know. And it was for a brand that I was creating a long time ago called Psycho Brand. And literally the shirt didn't go as far as like saying anything outside of I'm affiliated with Psycho Brand. So that's all it said on the shirt. Didn't have no message, nothing behind it.
I think that's everybody's first start, just creating their first brand.
No, I mean, and that was the point of it. The point of it was to have like a shirt that everybody was just gonna wear. Yeah. Just because they feel like they're part of this like community, if anything. So I wanted to get the community first.
Yeah, most definitely.
I guess that's kind of like how it works in general, and that's how it's always worked for me in general. It was just like trying to get that community first, so I can actually have some ears or some, you know, eyes.
What would you think that the steps you kind of took to begin to actually, you know, you talked about like, you know, be on a computer doing like the mock-ups and stuff. What do you think took you the steps to officially like to just progress?
Honestly, I just didn't know how to get money outside of just like, you know, doing shit. I'm what you would consider like a socialist, if anything. I literally don't look at money the same way as other people. So a lot of the times I kind of like let opportunities pass based off of like, you know, like little shit that's not even pertaining to money or whatever like that. And I do a lot of fucking free work too. For a long time I was doing a lot of like shit just for homies and shit. Like, so a lot of what it came down to is I didn't have like a financial basis or whatever. Of course, like my family and shit had money or whatever, my mom's had bread or whatever, but like I didn't really use them, or I didn't ask them to kind of like, you know, invest into me. So as soon as I got a chance to actually do it on my own or whatever, I took that opportunity and ran with it, you know, and just start producing as much as possible. And it's crazy, even then, like a lot of the shit that I was producing, I wasn't even selling it most of the time. I was just giving it away to the homies and shit. So, you know, what led to shit actually kind of like breaking through was me like just not being afraid of success, I guess. Yeah. You know, and just always taking that, like right now I think my mindset more so is like, you know, take advantage of the opportunities that come in front of you and shit like that, and always be grateful for them and always be humble and shit, you know.
So when did you start, like, when did you decide, oh, I'm gonna stop bullshit and just take this shit to the next level, or start it like officially?
I think it was pre-Pakkard, honestly, because I've experienced a whole fucking type of life, bro. I got fucking many stories and shit. Really, what it was I was working at Tried and True on Fairfax and shit like that. And of course, like, you know, you see so much success around there. Like, niggas blow up over there. Like, you know, Tyler Creator, all them niggas is like, you know, they all kind of like blew up over there. So you started seeing shit a little differently, you know, working in that atmosphere. It's like, these niggas eating, bro. And I'm just chilling here, like, not doing much. Like, you know, of course, I'm a designer, but at the same time, I'm not like going crazy as much as I want to. But yeah, I just figured that I have to, you know, get off the pot, honestly. It was like on some shit like that. What happened was pretty much somebody from Paris, like all the like guys from Pakkard came through to LA for that.
Wow,
for that one, for like a week. They had like a DJ set. And they actually tapped in at Tried and True, bought some shit and some more shit. And it was like one black French dude, he was fucking with me or whatever. My boy Samsung, shout out to Samsung too. But he came out here and he was fucking with me and shit. And like at that time, it was him. I'm forgetting on a lot of people's names, but it was pretty much a bunch of like the DJs and shit that was out there. And them niggas came to me and like pretty much was like fuck with me and shit. And at the same time, like I had people that was living in Paris. So I ended up moving to Paris for like a year and a half and like really just like absorbing the energy and shit like that.
Your perspective changed?
Yeah, my perspective completely changed and shit. And as soon as I ended up moving or whatever, because I didn't have like an extended visa coming back out here or whatever. And then like my perspective was completely different. I just started changing my whole approach on shit. I started looking at shit from an angle of like, bro, it's money out here. It's so many people. Like I feel like, the people from LA was respecting me a little bit more because I'm traveled. I'm well traveled. I think the time that I was in Paris, I was able to visit London. I was able to visit like, Belgium, Amsterdam and shit like that. So it's like that type of mindset kind of like, start brewing in my head. I was like, yo, I gotta be able to experience that again. And I gotta just I gotta get money so I can do this shit,
Yeah. So let's talk about your brand much more, and what is the message behind it? Because the way that I see the brand is just crazy. It's very different. It's very unique. It's very distinct. So talk about your brand much more, how you created it, and the message behind it.
Well, much more actually came from Pakkard closing. So I had like a store out here called Pakkard Studio on Olympic and Broadway in downtown, and like the whole vibe and shit like that was like so sick. But like we closed the store at a time towards we were on the up. You know what I mean? Like everything was like looking good for us, but me and my business partner separated at the time and shit, and like. I figured like the best thing for me to do is separate so I can start something new or, continue to express Pakkard, but like in the way that I choose to do it versus having like a business partner and like a whole fucking team frame around it. So much more pretty much was like, I was kind of like feeling down on myself a little bit or whatever after closing and shit like that because things wasn't working as I thought they should, And as soon as, like, I was just thinking, like, yo, I feel like the people need me, bro. Like, I was looking at shit, like, ever since we closed Pakkard, niggas wasn't doing shit. Like, shit wasn't popping as much. Like, everybody was like, bro, you need to open Pakkard again. Like, people hyping me up and shit. And I'm like, yo, like, and then, like, I start producing some shit for Pakkard a little bit and then kind of, like, kept it in the back a little bit. And then much more just came to me. I was like, bro, people need much more. Like there's much more that's like that I need to express. There's much more that I need to like be able to wrap myself around and stuff that's personally through Rick Dove's perspective, my whole mindset, my frame or whatever, my frame of thinking and everything. So in terms of much more, it blossomed from that idea itself. It's like, how do I give people much more of me through my design and like all the shit that I learned from Pakkard, all the shit that I learned from Paris, all the shit that I learned from Lupe, all the shit that I learned from all these different influences in my life, combine them and implement that shit. And really what it was too is like I always wanted to do something. I was very pro-black and very centric to my core beliefs, like something way deeper. I was even like thinking about other like I was even thinking about like other shit that I can do in terms of like, fucking I even wanted a podcast at one point, and I was thinking like, damn, like, I feel like Pakkard
I honestly could see that though. I ain't gonna lie. I can honestly see that.
You might see that. I'm gonna let you do you for some years. We gonna tap in later.
Yeah, what's that?
But I just figured that I needed to do something a little bit more, bro. I feel like fashion always been like this first level shit. It's always been a facade, if anything. People in fashion always like they judgy, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
They have like this whole like vibe to them.
Especially like people like us coming from where we came from. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Like, bro, they fucking judgy, bro. Like on Fairfax, bro, I loved it in terms of like the environment and the creative atmosphere of it. But at the same time, there's a lot of shit that I hated about it. I just didn't like the idea that like when I didn't work on Fairfax, niggas was like looking at me, judging me and shit like that. But as soon as I worked on Fairfax, everybody loved me and shit. And I saw the same niggas that loved me still hated their customers and shit like that. Like, still had like a vibe towards their customers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all niggas just think y'all hot shit. So, I mean, shit, that even brings it to much more in the sense of saying like, shit, after fucking Fairfax got hit with the riots and shit like that, I'm like, shit, they low-key needed that. Like, I don't want to say it too much because I do have people on there who I truly love and respect.
Yeah.
And that got fucked over in that situation. But at the same time, like, bro, y'all niggas been showing us these shoes, hyping us up, trying to fucking throw shit in our face and tell us, you can't get this type of shit.
Yeah.
Rap niggas been doing the same shit. But like streetwear brands, they live on this concept of like this facade. They're trying to teach you something that you don't need to be taught, type shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with a brand like Much More, like my whole perspective is so aligned with trying to bring some, like trying to inspire and try to bring some fresh air to like what this streetwear shit is. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of companies and shit that was prior to 2020 did not give a fuck about people at all.
But even right before, like even
years
that line, because I hate coming to the store and then the customer service in the boutique or whatever the case may be ain't A1. It's like,
ask niggas about Pakkard customer service. How we used to do, niggas, like we used to show so much love. We had our little issues or whatever like that, but like we used to show so much love towards. That's why the environment was there. Like, you know, we was able to build a community that actually fuck with us the long way and still fucking with us currently. You know, so like, you know, that type of shit is like, it's so good. It's so good to experience it. And now doing the Much More shit, like all those people from Pakkard, if not many more people, they're actually like showing up and showing support. So this shit is, you know, it's a blessing.
The reason I love, and it makes sense what you said earlier about you traveling and give you a perspective, because when I look at your designs, it's like, damn, it's you put in like black art, but into a higher level. You know what I'm saying? So when I seen, I'm like, yo, I'm sitting back. I'm like, yo, I don't know how he do it, but he doing it. You know what I'm saying?
And that's always been my perspective, bro. I think just from a South Central perspective, we always be trying to be the flyest niggas. Like, I feel like our whole shit was based off of like, you know, a lot of the shit was so influenced. Like the fact that niggas be wearing flannels and shit like that. The fact that niggas be wearing Dickies and Chucks, like. Even the little beanies to an extent, like niggas been wear that shit in jail, like South Central and shit. Like it's always played a part into fashion, but y'all
don't give y'all respect. I'm gonna give y'all.
Yeah, we don't be getting our respect a lot of the times, but fuck it, I don't give a fuck about that respect. Who the fuck, like, man.
Hey, one thing about people from South Central, y'all remind me a lot of Miami people, like you know what I'm saying, the way y'all. I just don't give a fuck. It is what it is.
I mean, shit, it is what it is, dog, for real. Yeah. But nah, that's what it's about, bro. Like, we get a lot of love now. I think, you know, even like niggas like big companies like Nike trying to tap in and shit, but they be doing shit with like, they be tone deaf as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, you know, companies like that be like, they don't know how to approach a situation like this because it's not a lot of representation, honestly. There's certain niggas, like, you know, shout out to my boy Bricks and Wood, Casey,
shout out to
and
Bricks
shit
and Woods.
Like that. You know what I mean? It's certain niggas who actually know what we want in this shit, but like it's a lot of niggas that necessarily didn't have those opportunities to kind of like show what they really feel. You know what I mean? I can only name like fucking designers on one hand in terms of like niggas who actually from South Central that's actually, you know, doing some solid shit. And it's a lot of us and we growing, bro, but you know what I mean? It's we never got that main light, you know what I mean?
I feel like it's like people like you like the stepping stone for inspiring people from South Central, and not even only South Central, hoods around the world, or you know, all through Black America.
I have to do it for South Central, man, because at the end of the day, bro, like I got to be the new OG, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
like,
real shit.
I'm a grown ass man now, so it's like, you know, the responsibilities that I have is shit that I can't like hide. You know, it's like shit. Once you know, you can't act like you don't.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the Shada Shakur pieces, and I'm gonna read this based on your Instagram, which you posted. You said you designed this shirt 3 weeks ago. I forgot how long it was. I think it was like 10 weeks ago. You said you designed this shirt 3 weeks ago, not knowing how important it would be in weeks ahead. What I learned from Ashada was her ability to stay focused on the goals she and the Panthers had for the people like me. What they represented was true organization and clear motives. I want to release this and a sticker pack Friday, June 5th.
I never got to do the sticker pack. Sorry, y'all. I'll still do the sticker pack later on.
Friday, June 5th, but I need a program or organization to send 60% of the profits to. Please let me know below any organizations I would be interested in. Brick Dove. So that kind of like got me interested. I was like, yo, this is real,
bro. Like, people don't care no more, bro. People do not like show no love to, you know, the people for that extent. Like, you know, and it's funny because like as soon as I dropped that shit, like, niggas start dropping shit or whatever, because I guess I gave them like that okay in a sense, you know what I mean? But of course, certain people still sus, you know what I mean? They still go be in their own sus ways, but you know that certain people on the other side of it was actually doing real good things and stuff like that. Like, you know, I shout out to Total Luxury Spa and my peoples. They helped me out a lot,
most definitely,
in terms of getting some shit done. But yeah, that shirt actually. So I designed the shirt with intentions to put it out, but not necessarily to put it out as my first tee. So I was kind of like, you know, I was asking a couple of my like closest friends or whatever, how do they feel about me putting that out as my first tee? And a lot of them actually said the same thing. They said, nah, don't put it out yet. And it's not to say that they're wrong, but they're right at the same time. But like, it was one of those things where I was like, yeah, you don't want to necessarily like wrap yourself in or lock yourself into like, you know, that yet. It was before the movement, so they might be sorry that I even said it. But like, it still was like one of those things. I was like, yo, I have to kind of like come out with this shit from that perspective, bro. Because even if I'm locked in, so the fuck what? Like, bro, I really want a brand to be locked into this shit. Like, I want a brand to live by these standards and these rules. You know what I mean? I don't want a brand to just be iffy and just put out some shit just for the fuck around. Like, I want somebody to actually put out some shit that they actually believe in and continue to put out things that they actually believe in wholeheartedly.
Yeah, most definitely. So by you doing that design, I can only imagine you read the book, of course.
Well, I didn't get to read the book all the way.
Okay.
Like, I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't get to read the book all the way.
Well, based so far, what do you think you learned from the book?
Well, I learned a lot in general in terms of like Assata Shakur as a person. I learned a lot about her initiatives, bro. Like, a lot of the mindset that she had or whatever it was just like, it was so pure to her and what she believed in. And I just feel like a lot of people could learn from that itself and just be true to yourself. Compassion a lot. Like, bro, like those programs that she helped create it and everything like that was just like, it was so people friendly and stuff. And, you know, to the point to where some people consider her like a communist or some shit like that. And like, you know, they consider a lot of the Black Panther Party communists or whatever like that. But I think it was like the early form of like democratic socialism and you know what it is right now. And that's pretty much what I've always believed in. Like I was telling you earlier, in terms of like the way I perceive money or whatever, I always was interested in sharing the wealth. And, you know, if I eat, we all eat type shit.
Most definitely.
And that's pretty much my practice now. Like, you know, as soon as I released that shirt, one of the first things that I did was I tried to start like I didn't do it officially on paperwork or nothing like that, but what I did was I gave money to youth, you know, people who were trying to start brands and shit. Because I was telling you earlier too, is that when I was trying to start, like when I was, you know, designing shit, I had a lot of mock-ups. And it's just like, you know, when you go put the shit out, and I didn't have like that support system. Of course, I could have asked for it. Like, I could have begged for it at least. When I asked for it, I didn't get it. But if I would have begged for it, then I probably would have got it. But I think for the most part, giving those people those avenues to be able to do shit and create shit early on early as possible is the best thing. Because like niggas thought, I thought that I was the best designer at my age, and I probably was. I don't even know. But like, you know, I felt like I was the best designer at my age, and nobody was giving me no fucking love or whatever like that. And I just didn't have like somebody like myself, like how I am now, to actually look out for me and be like, come on, young boy, like, come on, young bro. Like, you know, let's get this shit. Let me teach you how to do this shit. I never really had like a solid mentor.
Yeah, you know, it's so crazy. And I can only imagine how you feeling, because when we came up in the game, we didn't have nobody, like just said. But it's so crazy how the little ones, they look at us like they want to be under our wing, and it's just so crazy. Like, oh, what the fuck? I'm still grinding. And you looking up to me. That's just crazy, because you look in your past like the trials and tribulations you dealt with just to get to where you at right now.
I had niggas little bro me, I had niggas like, you know, play me to the side and shit like that. Like I used to actually shoot music videos at one point. I just remember like the artist dynamic in terms of like niggas who thought they was on and trying to be on and rap shit, and they would be like, "Hey, cameraman, get this! Oh man, you fucking up! You ain't getting this!" Like, I got my own vision. And like that really would made me be on some shit too. Like, man, I can't be working for nobody.
Exactly. It sucks, you know, that working for somebody it's just
gotta be a collaboration. I need the niggas to know my work enough to respect my point of views when I decide to work with them. I want a nigga to be like, yo, I already know what the fuck you can do. I want you to do you and give me what you got type shit. And that's what it is. And that's how it's gonna be from now on. Like, you know, price going up.
It is what it is. So let's dive into a little bit more of like Much More again. Let's talk about the details and how, like, you know, you package your stuff and talk about how the little things like that matter.
Well, I think in general, bro, I'm like a minimalist in general. Like, you can even tell like with my space and my aesthetics and shit like that. Like, I'm always into like the little finer stuff. You know, I'm definitely a fan of like dioramas and stuff in terms of like less is more, and you know simplicity. It's like minimalism is not like necessarily too simple. It's like just the right amount type shit. So in terms of like the packaging, like the way that I even set up like my graphics or whatever in certain cases, more so with Pakkard Studio than Much More, I'm like super maximalist. I'm, if anything, you would consider like the art style to be brutalism, you know. I think, but like in terms of like Pakkard Studio, everything is like very like centered and everything is like very concise, if anything.
Yeah.
I always look at that because I'm very interested in like, you know, some of the OGs who did it, or even like the brands like Acme Studios, you know. I used to be a bigger fan of like APC back in the day and stuff. I'm not so much right now, but like, you know what I mean? I just, you know, I'm really interested in stuff like that and seeing what people can do with the limitations, you know. I always looked at shit like that because I hate bulk. I don't like a lot of things. Like when it comes down to like I always tell people about my ice cream. Like I don't like when a nigga eat a big bowl of ice cream. That shit is so disgusting to me, bro. Yeah. Like I remember at my old apartment, I'm throwing you under the bus, bro. My homie literally had like a bowl of ice cream and had a spoon and it was like eating out the bucket. I'm like, nigga, if you don't, bro, that shit made me throw the whole ice cream away. Like, fuck this shit. Like, but like, I'm more. I guess it's that Parisian sensibility and the Japanese tendency type shit that I learned from Lou in terms of like the little small shit. Like I'm always interested in like drinking my little espresso and shit like that, and like, you know, eating sushi and shit because it comes in small little, you know, little vibes.
Yeah, and even the packaging when it comes out of sushi, like all that shit.
Yeah, clean shit. Color theory. Definitely paying attention to that type of shit.
Yeah. So what skills would you say you develop over time by creating Much More and Pakkard over the time?
I think I just created, if anything, the skill that I
and
got,
being a designer, by the way.
Yeah. The skill that I got was trust. I trust myself a lot. Like, you know, now I can actually, like, before I even start a project on like a blank canvas type shit, I know this shit about to be hard. Like I'm at that point now, and I never was at that point until like the last like 2 years in terms of like niggas actually showing me that they fuck with me. As soon as I got like the graphic designers, like the niggas who I thought was better than me, like liking my shit, that's when I felt like, all right, because like. Yeah, once them niggas start tapping in, I was like, all right, for sure, we solid now, you know? Yeah. And that's the skill I learned, is like how to trust yourself. That's a skill.
Taking all bets in.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Bet on black, you feel me?
That part.
Y'all better bet on black.
You better believe it. So, what would you say when you get a concept in your head, how do you approach it and how do you like, you know, bring it to life? In your eyes? Well,
you know, a lot of the stuff, like, you know, certain people, like a lot of the other graphic designers and shit, that's like really, really serious about the shit. Not to say I'm not, but like them niggas be taking it to another level. They be out here sketching shit out, like going all crazy and shit, and like, damn near like drafting fonts and shit on paper. I attempt to do that in certain cases. A lot of my better work, I've done it for that, but a lot of the stuff happens in the program. Like as I'm designing and shit in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever, I'm like, that's where I'm adjusting things. That's where I'm like, oh, this looks good here, this doesn't look good here, and I'm just changing and just doing variations and iterations and shit like that. So, that's pretty much my process. And of course, like when it comes down to inspiration and shit, I don't necessarily mood board at all. But that's a lot of the shit just be like what I want to see on clothes, like, you know what I mean? Like for instance, with the Asada shirt, I just was thinking like, all right, nigga, how can I make an Amish tee without it being like one of those fucking, big ass font at the top, big, like, you know what I mean? Like how they be doing a little shit with the you feel me? I was trying to make a modern, but also like a very like I guess it's organic in a sense. I just wanted to make like a sick ass variant of a Amish tee, and that's what it ended up coming out to be. And I think I'm gonna start using that approach a lot more. That was like one of the first couple of times that I actually did it, but it's a process. So
by being in LA for these past few weeks, I feel like it's an inspiration everywhere you go. So would you say LA gives you that inspiration each time you're out in the buying the street?
Honestly, I mean, shit. I lived. My original spot was up in Westmont. Of course, shout out to Westmont because that's South Central. That's where Ice Cube is from.
Oh wow.
That's where Draco the Ruler is from. That's where all my family is from, pretty much. Imperial and Western, and like just that atmosphere in terms of like the way that like Dub C is from there, like, you know what I mean, like just Crip shit, like it's so historic and shit like that, just in the area and shit like that. But like just getting inspired by that shit in general, and like knowing like my guerrilla approach to certain shit in terms of like how I approach like clients, or how I approach like my design work in terms of like that never fail, never fold type shit. Like I'm really like true to that. And then, like, just this Hollywood shit. I mean, now I'm in Larchmont. I went from Demont to Demont type shit. And, this is only, like, the second step of, like, me in terms of, like, living this, like, lifestyle. Of course, downtown, too. That's, like, my other home, too. But it just influences me. Downtown was, like, my way of, like, being in New York without being in New York type shit. Because I was like, oh, yeah, this is bar, this like city and shit. I was corny for that. But, like, you know what I mean? It was like, yeah, we in the city type shit. But, like, over here, low-key inspires me a lot because I'm seeing niggas with money, bro. I'm like, all right, I need to get on my shit, bro. I need to at least be able to have the lifestyle I want to live at the end of the day. Regardless if I'm a socialist or anything like that, I definitely want to have, like, a base level of like a nice lifestyle, you know what I mean? Everybody wants that.
Most definitely.
You know what I mean? So that's what it is. That inspires me a lot. But in terms of like the architecture here, like my boy Coop, who does Hood Mid-Century, he actually got me way more interested in, living in the inner city more. So I'm definitely like, trying to buy a house in the hood as well, and like, express myself through that as well, and try to see like the extent of like my aesthetic mixing in with the hood shit. Yeah. That's pretty much what it's been,
Yeah, most definitely. So let's talk about your other venture, Pakkard Studios, and how did that come about, and what's the curation behind it as well?
Well, like Pakkard Studio itself came from the idea because I was telling you I was fresh from Paris and stuff, and like trying to figure like shit out. I even like I was so sus before, bro. Like my whole phone was in French. I was like literally trying to be like a Parisian ass nigga, if anything, in LA, and trying to like implement that as much as possible into my style and shit. And then I kind of like figured it out after like a year or whatever being back out here, and I was like, yo, like this shit is not like all the way it, like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there needs to be some sort of Americanism in my shit. And this wasn't necessarily that I chose Black Americanism. I was just thinking about, American in general, like the general idea of what it means to be American. And so, like, I was thinking about, like, I was thinking like, what's the most American type of name that I can choose? You know what I mean? With still like a European twist to it. So I decided on Pakkard Studio. You know, thinking about like the Packard car, but also thinking about Green Bay Packers and all this shit. Like, you know, it's so easy to say, easy to remember and shit like that. And I just switched it out to 2Ks or whatever. You know, on some gang shit too, because it's like I don't want to put the C in the K, but you know what I mean? It's you know, implementing that, but also like just kind of like really being interested in like Nordic design and like, you know, a bunch of designers from like Copenhagen, Denmark, and all that shit. Is like, you know, their aesthetic and everything, and Dieter Rams, of course, and John Ives at Apple and all that type of shit. So I wanted to implement a lot of that in terms of my aesthetic. And just see how interesting it'll be, a kid from South Central being a gallerist up in downtown LA and actually having a space and holding a space for that long and actually being cool about it, you know. That was one of the more interesting things. I wasn't really doing it just for the, you know, for the clout. If anything, I was just doing it for like that feeling of being able to own a gallery up in downtown.
That was up. Yeah. It's like you remind me of myself, because it's like people like us I'm from Liberty City in Miami, so I try to put Liberty City on. Like that's just where I'm from. You know, come from in the hood. Like, you know, knowing that these kids ain't they're not able to do what I'm doing, but when they look at me, I give them an opportunity. Like, yo, here, like this, what you know what I'm saying? So I definitely know that feeling. I know that feeling when you express yourself when it comes down to your art and everything like that, because you don't just do it for yourself, you do it for where you came from. Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate it.
Exactly, man. I just be on some shit towards like I be on some little hostile shit sometimes. And you know, shit, it's like, you know, it be on some shit. I be out here hot at people on some shit. I don't be really mad, but I be like, man, if you don't knock it off, like I just don't like when bigger companies or whatever try to like flex on little companies or whatever and like steal from them and all this shit.
I hate that shit.
I just be pressing, you know. Of course, I'm gonna press you if I see you. I'm like the hood nigga Diet Prada type shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'll flex your ass. I'll press you, everything.
So what would you say would be your dream collab of all time?
I mean, honestly, I don't have that anymore. Nah. If you'd have actually like 4 years ago, I'd have probably said like, shit, I don't know. I'd have probably said like Kanye West, Donda, you know what I mean? Because I had opportunities to be a part of Donda and shit.
But is it because of what you know now? Of like the dynamics of these brands and stuff like that?
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's also like a new perspective in terms of like, I'd collaborate with niggas I know. And I'd actually want to be able to experience like this growth and wealth and everything like that with niggas that I kind of grew up with, or like, you know, inspired to work with, you know what I mean? Shout out to Total Luxury Spot. Like that's one of the people who I would really be interested in doing some stuff with. I mean, a lot of smaller brands and shit. Shout out to shit. I wouldn't even name drop right now, but like it's like a lot of different little small brands that I'm more interested in collaborating with than these big ass fucking these alien type brands.
That's respect, though. But that's respect, because you have the courage of saying that. Most motherfuckers ain't gonna say like, oh, I ain't really fucking with that. I'd rather just do my way.
I mean, I seen it with Supreme in terms of them niggas actually came out with a shirt that said "fuck Nike," and now they got dumb Nike collabs. Like, you can win up this shit still. Like it's still possible to still be able to do a collab with these niggas. I'm pretty sure.
It just gotta make sense.
It gotta make sense. You know what I mean?
So what's your future goals on the things that you want to accomplish, and as well as your other ventures as well too?
Well, I'm definitely interested in seeing a post-COVID world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I guess that's my goal, but that's the goal of us. You know, it's all a equal goal amongst the people who live in this world type shit. But also, like, still considering the fact that coronavirus and shit is affecting us so much, it's now the best thing to kind of like think about, like, what if it never ends type shit. Like, how do we continue to inspire and create with that in mind? And like, you know, trying to find like new interesting ways to be able to experience art is always like something that's on my mind. It's like, damn, how can I build these experiences? Because of course I own Pakkard Studio, which was like a real touchy-feely type of, you know, environment. And now it's like, you know, how do I make these experiences to where they can still like touch and feel, or feel something at least, and you know, not necessarily have to worry about fucking, you know, catching a fucking disease. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the shit we got to worry about now. But like, how do I create these experiences that are a little bit different than what people are used to? You know.
So, what advice would you give to somebody that's want to take the similar path that you did as well?
I mean, I don't want to be cliche, because the advice be the same time. It'd be the same type of shit all the time in terms of like, keep doing it. You know what I mean? I don't want to be cliche and say like, fucking keep doing it and continue to hustle, get on your grind. I would probably even say like, tap in with me, bro, and I'll actually have a conversation with you and talk to you and try to figure out what works best for you in general. Not even on some client shit, but like on some like big bro shit. Or even like, shit, if you older than me, man, just tap in. You feel me?
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Because
you probably gonna get the realest out of me in a situation like one-on-one. Then a nigga could be like, you know, you're not gonna learn shit from my video, bro. Like, nigga, it's not a tutorial on how to get it at all. You gotta tap in with me.
Yeah. So how can the people get in contact with you?
So, I mean, hit me up on Instagram, Much More by Rick. That's the Much More Instagram. Then Pakkard Studio, Pakkard Studio on Instagram. And then by Rick Dove is my personal. So tap in with me, hit me on there, because everything else is like customer shit. So I'm going to think you a customer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is episode 33. I appreciate you, my brother, for coming through on the show.
Yeah, most definitely. I enjoyed every moment of it. This is actually one of my first like video podcast experiences.
I appreciate it. I'm honored.
I actually enjoyed it. I was a little nervous before, but I'm good now.
Yeah, I'm honored, man. But yeah, this is episode 33, and we out.
Yes, sir.